for episode, I believe, 4 of the post-COVID-19 Stocky Talk, featuring the two that started MMA tea company, John Brennan and Alex Einhorn. How are you gentlemen doing this morning?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm the world's okayest neighbor. I'm fueled up on bulletproof coffee and gonna keep that ball rolling. How you doing, Alex?
That's good.
Good. We're surviving, chugging along every day. It's been good.
Yeah, I'm curving my grandparents, trying to convince them to stay home in the retirement community and social distance away from me. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I've been getting a phone call every day from my grandpa. Apparently, he has to figure out the cloud, which is this abstract idea of the internet. And someone, I believe, did a phishing scam on him, impersonating him, asking him for money. So his first instinct was to unplug his router and cancel his credit card. So I dealt with that yesterday, which was interesting. That's all times we live in.
Yeah.
Did you have to teach him how to reset his router afterwards? Does he have internet now?
I think he just plugged it back into the wall.
Good.
He just put power back into it. But
so he did the old Comcast try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. He also didn't. He unknowingly took a very drippy selfie, where he was wearing his full overcoat and hat, showing his rings in the mirror, and just put on a Facebook story. So I screenshotted that, and I let him know. He goes, "How did I get there?" I'm like, don't play coy with me."
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. So, how you guys handling the quarantine? You guys enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm busier now than I was prior to quarantine, aside from not training, trying to do what I can to stay in shape, ride bike, run, what have you. But yeah, I always typically work from home anyway, and Kayla's a nurse practitioner, so she's still been going into work. So my life really hasn't changed other than not being able to see all your beautiful faces at the gym every day.
Alex, how's quarantine affected you? Are you in a similar boat, being a digital nomad, primarily remotely?
No, so I was before the quarantine. I was work every day, splitting time between Philadelphia and Baltimore. So now I'm not going anywhere. So my life has changed dramatically. We're still building the home gym in the basement. So we're still lifting. We're still training a little strongman stuff. And then most of our efforts, over the last month or so, has been mostly apparel through MMA tea company, which we'll get into, and then some other apparel brands that we have, Philly Drinkers, and the focus has shifted. We're doing a lot less event T-shirts and apparel because there's no events, and we're doing a lot more like custom face masks and scarves and neck gaiters and stuff. So we're still chugging along, and I know we'll get into this, but the quarantine for all the things that have been bad about it. Obviously, COVID-19 is a terrible thing. John and I somehow have been able to find the silver lining, and the timing of it has actually been okay with how we kind of wanted to grow this brand slowly but consistently. And the fact that there are no fights happening right now is actually a good thing for the growth of MMA tea company, I would say.
And why would you attribute that? Is it because the supply chain, as far as the production side, isn't so demanding because there isn't too much product being MMA events? Is it because you guys have a lot more time to focus on the marketing and onboarding aspects of new fighters?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, as far as apparel and warehousing and stuff, we're still moving at full speed. Obviously, things are a little slow. We've had to kind of scale down our, staff. We're kind of running a skeleton staff at our warehouse just because of everything that's going on. So we do have shipping delays and stuff, which everyone's been super cool about, which is great. But your last point was exactly correct. This has given us an opportunity to really grow the brand and kind of recruit fighters and sign sponsored fighters without the so-called distraction of normal life going on. And then also, it'd be great if we had some fighters fighting for us right now with fights on cards. But at the same time, it's been nice to kind of establish ourselves, and we try to become a little more well-known, at least in the region for now, while nothing's going on. And when this whole thing is over, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later, it's almost going to look like we came out of nowhere when really we've been, basically busting our ass while the world has been kind of shut down.
Yeah, and to speak to Alex's point too, it has given us more time to focus on what is our fighter journey from the point where they actually sign their sponsorship agreement with MMAT company to, okay, now we're going to release their press release and now we're going to do an interview with them, and building in these steps along the way, because our goal is not just to sell merch, right? That's step one, is to sell shirts for the fighters, get them their commission, make sure that they're paid. But the underlying goal of this entire brand is to build and grow the brand of each one of the athletes that signs with us. So we've had a lot of phone calls, spend a decent amount of time just kicking ideas back and forth of, okay, so how can we position this piece, and where can this content go, and where is this piece of content within the fighter's journey of with our team, and where are they after 3 months and 6 months, because we don't want to just sign a fighter, do a bunch of media and branding work up front, and then all of a sudden we forget about them, right? And then they're just kind of on the back burner. We're always going to go back and to keep kind of plugging our fighters, and that's the goal, is to always be moving forward with them, and to build a team and a family instead of just, okay, now you're part of us. Okay, good luck selling your own shirts.
Yeah.
So you're really helping a fighter to brand themselves. You're creating a full sales and marketing funnel where, the step one obviously isn't selling merch right off the bat. Step one is doing a press release. So creating some awareness. And then step two would be completing an interview, which is more of a deep dive. Hey, you're aware of this fighter, learn some more. And then afterwards, down the road, you can start to focus on sales. It seems like what you're doing is you're enabling an MMA fighter who's effectively an independent contractor. I mean, from a business standpoint, they're not an employee necessarily. They're, selling their services to whichever promotion, would hopefully be in their best business interest. You're kind of helping them to make the most financially off of those decisions so they can focus more on the production or the fight game, if you will, than the merch and the marketing game. Is that kind of a way to? I think I understand MMAT company. I think I really support it. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it in the sense that we are employing a ton of independent contractors, because that's what fighters are. Being involved in this game for 7-8 years now, I've kind of seen how easy it can be as a fighter to get taken advantage of. I've kind of seen how time consuming it can be to have to move your own merch, your own ticket sales, kind of do everything on your own. So Alex and I had worked together and sold my shirts through his other brand, Philly Drinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to talking, and he just asked me one day, is there a need for this kind of business, in the world of MMA? And I said, yeah, there's a huge need. There's not one person who wants to go out there and sell shirts the week that they're cutting weight out of a cardboard box. We want to make it as easy as possible for the athletes to focus on what they're contracted to focus on, which is the fight. Everything else should be secondary, but a lot of times you get caught up in hustling a shirt at the last minute, dropping off tickets at the door for somebody while you're going in to make weight. All of those different things, we're trying to alleviate those pain points.
Yeah, and I think by lifting some of the burden of, if you look at the job description of an MMA fighter, it's not just show up in a cage and fight. I mean, that's an essential duty, but there's also like preferred qualifications, knows how to do marketing, knows how to do sales, can understand t-shirt supply chain, customer service, go down the line with all these sort of sales professional gigs. It's funny you say that. I was in an interview earlier, and we were just talking about how I went from how I started MMA, and I was in it actively for a year. And my first fight, I was working at a tech startup, and I was working like 60 hours a week there. And I was like, yeah, it also took me 40 hours a week to prepare for the fight. And he's like, oh, what do you mean 40 hours a week? Like, you weren't working out for 40 hours a week. I was like, no, I was not. But I was on the phone, I was on the computer, trying to hunt people down for ticket sales, market myself, understand the business side of it, and that probably took 15, 20 hours a week. So, and that's just one sample. I mean, I'm sure if you polled more people, but how much time, John, in your career do you think you spent doing the sales and business operations part of MMA, in the pie chart of preparing for a fight? Just be
Phew.
truth.
It's up
You
there.
sold
I
a
mean,
lot of
I'd
tickets.
say, yeah. I mean, most of my fights. I don't think I sold less than 50 tickets for a fight.
Mhm.
So, every fighter always does the traditional, as soon as they get their tickets in hand, they spread them out, they make a post on Facebook. So, it starts with that. And then you always get an influx of people, right? They always are like, hey, I want a ticket, I want a ticket, I want a ticket. So then you have to also keep track of that. So I'd always keep notes in my phone. Um, to go back to your question, I'd say it's about a third of my overall time, right, is just that sales and marketing. Another third would be the actual training. And then another third would be just kind of that business operation side of things, of making sure everything kind of lines up. Because, right, you get your name out there, right? You're putting yourself out there, letting people know that you're fighting, asking for that support. You got to take notes in your phone. You got to keep track of everything. You got to get Venmo, PayPal, cash, check, Apple Pay, Facebook Pay, you name it. People will find a way to try to send you money for those tickets. And then on top of that, are you going to mail them your tickets? Are you going to drive and physically see people? Are you going to just have them at the gym? Like, all of these different factors weigh into your mental space. And a big thing for me when I'm fighting is I cannot have a lot of outside distractions in my day-to-day life. It's work, it's train, diet, spend some time with my wife, fall asleep on the couch, go to bed, wake up the next day again. Um, and when you are constantly getting, inundated with, hey, I wanted 2 tickets, but now I want one. Can you meet me with the ticket? This and that. It gets to a point where you're just like, I don't like, what's the point of even selling these tickets until you
Mhm.
see, that check that you get for the commission from the state. That's why you do it. You get money off of it. Um, so for me, it just became something where I was like, Mom, can you sell these tickets for me? Like, I'm not going to pay a manager, right? I'm
Right.
not to the point where I want to do that, to go and do all these things for me, but I needed some, assistance. It becomes overwhelming.
And you make a good point, because the people that are already at the point that they can afford to have a manager to do so, they already are the people at the point that may or may not have a person doing their meal prep. They may or may not have a person doing very specific tasks for them, where their business manager might be the third or the fourth addition to their independent contractor team, business team. And that, what you mentioned there was just ticket sales, not even letting alone, there's another demographic or Venn diagram circle for t-shirt sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and shirts. I mean, that is something where everybody kind of does the same thing, right? You put in a bulk order, you either front the money and then hope that you sell all the shirts that you bought, or you're out cash, or you have to take orders, put them in your phone, get the Venmo, get the PayPal, get the cash. Oh, well, I'll pay you when I get my shirt. Oh, well, I'll pay you after this. I'll pay you after that. A whole nother aspect of fighting, right? So Alex came to me. He says, hey, we could, do the same model, right, for Philly Drinkers, which is the direct garment, right? And we could use that warehouse and we could do it for MMA fighters. Do you think that would help them out? I said, not only would that help them out, that would, save a lot of people a ton of stress, a ton of just pains that they have.
Yeah. So Alex, I wanted to ask you how did you get started with a t-shirt business? We mentioned Philly Drinkers a few times.
Yeah.
Could you give me a background, a history lesson on that venture?
I'll keep it as short as I can. So going back a little further than that, John and I worked together at the Lancaster Barnstormers, the minor league baseball team here in Lancaster, and dating back to 2012, 2013, John, and
Yep.
kind of working in the same department, kind of working as partners, and I would see him working at the office. This was before he was kind of doing a lot of stuff from home, and he would work normal 9 to 5 in the off season, and then we both work 8 a.m. to midnight every day during the summer. And I would see him doing that full-time job, 80 hours a week, training for fights, cutting weight, and physically, sitting at his desk at his cubicle, cutting weight, so he looked rough, he looked tired, he was going through fight camp. He had a stack of tickets on his desk. He would have a cardboard box full of t-shirts, and he'd be answering phone calls on his cell for selling, MMA, selling tickets and selling shirts, and then at this talking to coaches or whoever, and then at the same time he was on his computer on his other phone doing his 9-to-5 job. And I think when I kind of started to see for the first time, like that, because I don't have the MMA experience, so it was when I kind of got the event side of, and attending his fights as well, like what goes into it. It's so much more, like you touched on. I think there's this preconceived notion that you just jump in and you fight, right? And it's so much more than that. It is you are your own business person when you're doing that. You're your own business. So I kind of, took that information, put it on the back burner, put it in the back of my brain, and kind of continued living our lives. And the short version on how I started Philly Drinkers is John left. This is actually such a small world. John left the Barnstormers not more than like a month before opening day or something, right? He left pretty close to opening day of like the 2017 baseball season, which left us without like our on-staff graphic designer. He was like the only guy we had. So that left me like having to learn graphic design, Illustrator, Photoshop, all this stuff to get images on the video board. That left me, I had no experience in that software. I had like 3-4 weeks to learn that software. So I did that, and we brought in an intern to kind of take John's spot as like a Band-Aid. And, we got through the season. And then when the season ended, I had these like design skills that, to be honest with you, weren't very good, but they were something. And I was proud of them because I learned them overnight. And so I started doing design work in the off season, like freelance for different clients and putting my designs on t-shirts. I wasn't actually selling the t-shirt. I was selling the design. So I'm just getting royalties for it. And I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a 76ers fan. So I started doing like designs like that, kind of skating that like copyright line, which I learned a lot about later. And basically the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I did a design of Jason Kelsey doing his speech, right? Very simple design with a filter and Hungry Dogs Run Faster, that whole thing. And I put it up on TeePublic, which is like a Redbubble type, you make $2 for every design you sell. So it's not really your own business. You're an independent contractor of them. And they won the Super Bowl. They had the parade. I did that shirt design, it's not a good design by design standards, but whatever, right? Simple graphic tee. And I remember waking up one morning and going through my emails, and I was looking through, and I'm like, oh, sweet. Like, I sold a shirt overnight, scrolling down. Oh, I sold 2. Oh, I sold 3. And that first night I put the design up, I sold 500 shirts overnight. Yeah. And I was like, I'm allowed to swear, right? I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that. And it wasn't that much money because I was making like $2 a shirt, but still, overnight, I was like, okay, there's something here, even though I'm a horrible designer. I think I can navigate through this. So I did that for a while. Until finally I was like, I got to stop doing this where I'm making royalties. I need to sell the product myself. So I started doing a lot of like, screen printing, but direct to garment, like basically laser jet printers for t-shirts, unlimited colors, that kind of thing. So I started my own Shopify store, Philly sports themed. And that actually then rolled into wholesale, apparel. So I started, I have the strength sport background as aside from you guys doing the combat sports, strongman, powerlifting, CrossFit. I started recognizing at these events that I was attending to help, or as a fan, or myself competing, that all these promoters, everyone that gets a shirt for competing or buying a shirt when they're there, they're just using custom ink and paying $15-$16 a shirt, whatever, getting them in the mail. And I thought to myself, there's a better way to do this. And that's when I started contract screen printing and got a wholesale license. And I'm a promotional product distributor in Pennsylvania and really all over the country. So I started attacking all these CrossFit, powerlifting, strongman events aside from Philly Drinkers. So I had the retail brand, Philly Drinkers LLC, and then under that umbrella, I had Drinkers Promotions, where I do like strongman shirts for events, CrossFit, powerlifting, and so that kind of rolled into the wholesale market. And I do full promotional products now. And then, we circled back around to John, like me doing my shirts through his site. It's like, he touched on it. How can we help other fighters? And originally we were just going to kind of do it through Philly Drinkers. And then we realized, like, holy shit, this market is big enough and there's enough fighters with the same pain points. We should start our own company separate from everything else that we're both doing. And we came up with the name MMAT Company. And to be honest, we kind of came up with this concept in, I want to say February, John.
Mm-hmm.
February. We officially launched the website in March, and we signed our first fighter, not including John, like almost exactly a month ago, 5 weeks ago. Since we have 16 fighters, including John, and we're moving merch. I mean, it's not insane right now because there's no fights going on, but we're getting creative, doing design work for people, and we're doing okay. And I think aside from that, like you touched on earlier, and you hit the nail on the head. We've realized as we've gone that it's not so much about the clothing, but the exposure and the different ways that we can help these athletes brand themselves, because they all have their own brand. And a big part of fighting, a big part of selling yourself to a promoter or a matchmaker, and John obviously can speak better to this, is not just that you're a good fighter. There's so much more that goes into that. Are you marketable? Do you have a good following? Can you move tickets? Can you move apparel? Are you going to draw a crowd? And so with that in mind, we started doing fighter signing press releases and YouTube videos and these different ways we can market our fighters aside from just them selling merch, right? So I think it's going to change even still, and we're going to keep adapting. But as we grow, we found ourselves becoming more of almost like a marketing agency as opposed to just apparel sales, and that's almost become the bonus of all of it.
I wanted to not argue a point, but to piggyback off of one thing you said. You said you weren't the greatest graphic designer, but you sold 500 T-shirts and overnight.
Yeah.
There was, I went to school for originally English, like professional writing, journalism, things like that. And one of the lessons we learned is that you could be the greatest writer in the world. You could have a diamond in your pocket, but if no one knows about it, you're only the greatest writer in your own world. So the difference was the best-selling author, which is what you get an award for, versus the best writing author, which no one really, I mean, I couldn't tell you who that is, but everyone knows like a J.K. Rowling who wrote Harry Potter or something. So if you sold 500 T-shirts, my jaw kind of hit my desk. I had to pick it back up. And one night, I'm sure you definitely worked hard, and it was great timing. And I don't believe in luck. It's just when hard work meets opportunity. But it sounds like you got a winning formula right there. And for pacing your business the same exact way that the virus paced the United States, the same time frame, I think you guys are doing a great job. And hopefully you guys see way more exponential growth and you don't flatten the curve, unlike the virus. I believe that will be flattened way sooner than MMA Co. regional.
Yeah,
I think so too.
You're exactly right with the author analogy, and it's funny because I meet with designers and I will outsource some designs, because we had some money in the bank for the businesses as they've grown. So it's like, well, not only am I not as good of a designer as I could be, but why focus my time on becoming a better designer when that time can be spent becoming a better, I guess, business person, for lack of a better term. And so I've had friends look at my design work without knowing that it's mine, whether it's at previous jobs or current projects I'm working on, and they don't know it's mine. And I show them a design, from an art standpoint. And they're like, yeah, this is a shit design, all considered, coming from guys who have degrees in graphic design. And then at a certain point, you come to realize, like to your point, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
And Alex is downplaying his design ability too. If you look at our store, 90% of the designs that are in that store were done by Alex. I mean, any fighter that comes to us, we don't charge them for design work, right? All of their custom designs are done in-house by someone on our team, Alex doing a lot of them, up front. And, that's another benefit of, coming in with us. We're not going to charge a fighter anything ever. They will never pay us $1 for a single thing that we do for them. It's not in our blood. I've seen so many people take money from fighters for so many different things. So Alex is downplaying his design ability, but his designs are pretty sweet.
And I want to piggyback off of that point too. When I hear people are taking money from fighters, like regional, amateur, professional, when you're not in the big show, even when you're in the big show, fighters aren't making the big bucks. It's not like you're a golfer. Like if you're an amateur golfer, you probably already have some money in order to support your habit. If you're an amateur equestrian, the quickest way to become a millionaire in the horse industry, this is a quote I've heard, whether it's true or not, it might be risky, let's just go with it, is to start with 10 million. because it's an expensive habit. It's not like fighting. Fighting is like, hey, I need to make $500 off of this fight, or else my kid's going to be really hungry and upset with me.
Yeah.
That's somewhat of the mentality. Not every case, but it's more in line than, oh, well, if I don't, I can afford to drop $20,000 in my amateur MMA fight camp. Well, no, probably not the case. But to that point, one of my motivational factors for ever starting a YouTube channel being Stocky Talk in the first place was, with Zach, I'm like, how do we get regional MMA fighters paid more? I think that the income disparity between people that invest so much, it's, in my opinion, the most entertaining sport. Now, that's completely opinion and debatable. But you see these people that are, that are playing amateur or semi-pro or pro sports that are making more money than they ever know what to do with, but amateur fighters are only making a commission off of their ticket sales. Like, this needs to be addressed in some shape or form. And by starting the Stocky Talk YouTube channel, my hope was to help build brand awareness for regional fighters, so that when someone at least Googles their name, something positive shows up for them. Their brand is spun in a positive light. But you guys are taking that to a whole new level when it comes to traditional marketing and digital marketing. Can you tell me a little bit more about what we know that the traditional marketing, the print, the T-shirt, where that came from. Can you tell me what influenced your style for marketing as far as just the marketing piece, the digital? Maybe John could touch on that, or Alex?
Lots of late night text message threads of kicking ideas back and forth. I've seen, I am a pretty avid follower of some podcasts. I, listen to Chael Sonnen every time that his drops. Every once in a while I'll listen to. He is the greatest of all time. Never lost a single round, undefeated and undisputed. And I take a lot of motivation in the way that he talks about the sport and his knowledge of the sport, and the way that he can, discuss different topics at a, I don't want to say higher level, but just a different way of thinking about it, coming from the athlete side of things, blending that athlete and business. And Alex and I got to talking, and I was like, I have a computer. I can Skype people. I can interview them. I was like, that would be great for their brand. And then we were like, why don't we put out press releases? And then it turned into, now, we have a Facebook group with all of our fighters in it. I'll post a message in there and say, hey guys, thinking this idea for a graphic, can you all send me, a picture of you fighting? We'll put a quote with it and we'll release it on this day, stuff like that. So a lot of our media and where it comes from, I think, is influenced by Alex's background and my background in, with the Barnstormers and the live events. And then I went on and I worked for a company called Brand Yourself. I was doing personal branding for 2 years. So, I went that route. Alex was working still in the, entertainment industry when he, went to iFly. We were both still competing. He's doing strongman and I'm doing MMA. And we just kind of see the way that the, industries go, what's popular, what's not, and kind of, try to give all of our athletes a voice. And I think all of our branding, all of our marketing is based off of how can we get the most out of our company for our athletes, right? It's not so much even about marketing and branding ourselves as it's about giving them a voice and letting their brand shine.
Yeah, and I think just to touch on that real quick, because those are great points. A big part of this whole thing comes back to our business background, right? So the word that comes to mind, whether it sounds corporate or not, is account management, right? The only thing more important than finding new clients in business is keeping the ones you currently have, right? So we could sign 1,000 fighters in a month. I mean, I couldn't, but we could in theory, right? And out of those we could do it. Out of those 1,000, how many are we actually talking to and pushing their brand and keeping them happy? Probably zero if we have 1,000 fighters in that quick of a turnaround, right? So something that is our perfect balance is, keeping that steady train moving of finding new fighters and developing relationships with them and signing them to our sponsorship agreements. But at the same time, just as important, or you could argue more important, as we're signing new fighters, how do we keep the current fighters that we have not just happy, but engaged and loving the process? Like you guys touched on, they're independent contractors, sure, whatever. But at the same time, this is almost influencer marketing at its finest, right?
Mhm.
Because we're not running ads to move any merch. There's no point in that right now yet, right? We have some original designs that we'll get to in the future. But right now, these influencers / independent contractors / our friends and our fighters, our family, they're out there pushing their own brand. So we can put money in their pocket because, like we talked about, that's and taking some pain points as well. And I think the account management comes down to every single move that John and I make for MMAT Company and anyone else who comes on board as we add people to our staff. We have two main goals. And every move that we make, whether it's a Skype interview, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram posts, doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Any action that we make that involves our brand, it has to accomplish one of two things. It has to help us sign more fighters, or it has to help us keep our current fighters happy. And if we come up with something that doesn't accomplish those two things, we're not going to do it right now. And we have these brainstorming sessions and we talk every day and weekly in person or whatever over Skype right now. If we have an idea and it doesn't answer, if it's not helping us sign new fighters and it's helping us keep our current fighters happy, then we're not doing it. But if it fits one of those boxes, we're moving forward with it. And we're staying consistent. We have tunnel vision right now and we're going in one direction, and that's what we're going to keep doing until we have to adapt again.
So speaking of the direction in which MMAT Company is going, what do you guys see as the long-term vision for the brand, for the company? And I'm not going to say 5 years. I'm not going to say 10 years. Just ambiguous question. What's the long-term vision?
Go ahead, John.
The official apparel company of the UFC. It's the only goal. You want to be the best or you don't want to do it.
And are you guys the official apparel company of Art of War? Of the regional?
No, we're not the official apparel company of any regional brands now. We're open to working with them. I've reached out and, touched base with them. But a lot of those brands are also, printing their own shirts. Like I know Bickings prints his shirts at his house and then, hustles them at the show. And that's putting money back in his pocket. And promotion is all about what's your bottom line, right? You're not going to be a promoter if you're not making money. Anybody that's in the promotion game, from the smallest first time ever show all the way up through Dana White, they're in it for the fighters and they love the sport, right? And all of those things are great, but you're not going to take a loss on shows over and over and over again and stay in business. That's just
not a nonprofit business.
Exactly. So we're working with the fighters, individually now. But who's to say that, we can't be, that official brand of, the UFC, Bellator, PFL, whatever that would be. We have, top quality merchandise that we're putting out. Our basic tee is, a Gildan soft style tee, which is a very good t-shirt. And then our premium tees are, next level tees. And, Alex can speak more to that. But if you've ever gotten, a Christian Carr t-shirt, that next level tee is, something that you actually want to wear out and wear around. It's not a t-shirt that you wear to paint the house.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually was at Universal Athletic Club and I saw someone in the locker room wearing a Letitia Mole Honey Badger t-shirt. And I'm like, Honey Badger? I started a conversation with him. So what do you know about the Honey Badger? Oh, yeah, I found her on social media. I really like her. I'm a big fan. And I'm like, whoa. Let's
go.
And I was like, oh, we go to the same gym. He's like, you know her? I was like, this is pretty sick. Like, I wish I could write a testimonial and put it online.
Yeah.
So, no, to that same point, John, I think, wow, that's go big or go home. If you ain't first or last, as Ricky Bobby once said. I like the ambition.
In all seriousness, we want to grow and keep signing fighters. Our business has changed. What'd you say, Alex? 12 times in the last 5-6 weeks that we've been in business.
Yep.
So, you always want to have, those long-term goals and say, like, we can grow and get to that level. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. Do we want to do that? Today, maybe we do. Tomorrow, maybe we don't. It depends on, like Alex said, what's best for our fighters and what's best for signing fighters. If that would take us, away from working with regional MMA fighters, then that's not the route that I would want to go.
Right.
Because we're still, in the business of growing their brand.
I think another point is that you guys are proving to be quite adaptable with the times, and I think that people look at Charles Darwin's theory as being the survival of the fittest, but I think it's also survival of the fit, which is you're more likely to survive if you're willing to adapt and evolve. Yep. And you guys definitely have a good fit with fighters, pun intended. So staying regional, because you never know who from the regional scene could go and blow up to the big show.
Never know.
I mean, every person that's ever fought in the UFC was a regional fighter. There's no way around it. I mean, except maybe Brock Lesnar.
Well,
and CM Punk.
Brock Lesnar did start at JUCO, junior college wrestling.
And CM Punk did train for like 8 months.
I mean, he's legit. He's about as legit as I come. He may be fighting Chael for the greatest of all time MMA fighter spot.
I hope so.
in some universe, maybe not this one, maybe a parallel one. So as far as other brands go, when I think of MMA Tea Company and I'm just doing some pre-call notes, I'm thinking of like the brand On It. You guys seem like you're similar to that brand, whereas like you're helping out fighters and you're endorsing them as influencer. But what other brands come to your mind that you hope to be comparative, or what brands give you inspiration, or what brands do you hope to compete with?
All right, so good question. There's one company that really comes to mind, and it just goes to show how small of a world it kind of is. As far as I know, and John can speak better to this, and so you, Ross, we're kind of the only ones doing exactly what we're doing right now. I haven't seen too many others, and maybe that's just because we're starting small, regional. And keep in mind, I'm an outsider too. Other than going to fight, I don't have the ins. I don't have the knowledge that you guys have, which honestly might help benefit the business a little bit because I can see it from 30,000 feet sometimes. There is a company that is called ProWrestlingTees.com, right? And I'll let you look at it, on your own after this or whatever. What this website is, it's almost exactly what we are, but for wrestling. And I don't mean like, Olympic wrestling or whatever. I mean like wrestling, like WWE, that kind of stuff. So if you go to ProWrestlingTees.com, you'll see that they have individual independent contractor stores set up for merch for all different independent, professional wrestlers, referees, podcasts that focus on wrestling, influencers, different companies, different brands. And they're kind of doing exactly what we're doing, but in that professional wrestling space and not in the MMA space. They actually have a few MMA fighters on there, but it's not really their niche. And it's funny because we actually didn't find this website until after we started ours. And it's kind of helped us kind of mold what we're doing a little bit because they're not a competitor of us, right? So we've actually talked to some folks, some wrestlers and referees who have stores on there and use their knowledge on, what are they making every time a shirt sells? How is that company working with them? Are they personable? Is it hard to get a hold of them? Things like that. So we've used them as some motivation. If you really dig into them, that actually started with onehourtees.com, which is a wholesale promotional product distributor, which is what I started as. And then you kind of branch out and run into certain niches. And if they work, you don't look back and you keep going. And I think going back a little bit to your point, to both your points, like, I kind of grew up in the sport of MMA over the last 10 years just through John, right? Buying tickets, supporting him, buying shirts, even before I helped him with shirts, going to his events, watching him fight, hanging out with him after, whether he's got a belt or not, seeing his demeanor after he wins, right? Is he grabbing a beer right away? Like just being around it, but not in it, right? So I have this, I guess, unique perspective as someone who loves live events of being in there like, holy shit, like, we're at this event. There's a couple thousand people here, right? Depending on the promotion. This is awesome. And you guys are living it, so it's different. But for me, I'm like, why does nobody really know about this, right? Like people know about it, but they don't really know about regional MMA. People hear MMA and they're like, oh, yeah, Conor McGregor, right? Yeah, I know MMA, right? But
do you do UFC? Did you ever hear that question, John?
Yeah. I got that question. I still get it to this day. Oh, so you fight in the UFC? Like, well, no. No, I don't.
And that's my point. Just because the fact that you get those questions all the time, and the fact that these have popped into my head when I first started going to your events, it's like these guys and girls that step into this cage, and this is similar to strongman, which is kind of why I rolled it over. you could be at a regional event looking at a world-class athlete. I mean, and I came from the strongman world where I went to strongman nationals in 2016. The heavyweight class was full of 400-pound guys that one or two of them maybe could be in the NFL as a lineman. Like, you don't know. Like, there are world-class athletes doing strongman competitions in parking lots, right? Or here in Lancaster, there could be a world-class fighter fighting inside the Lancaster Host when that was still a shitty hotel.
I mean, who comes to mind for me? Yeah, I think that place is no longer. But Daryl Horcher fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah,
Everyone knows
short notice
Khabib.
fight.
He was a part of like one of the largest fights of all time with Conor McGregor. But when Tony Ferguson 3, Tony Ferguson 4, whichever iteration of Tony versus Khabib fell through, who came on short notice to fight Khabib? Daryl Horcher from Harrisburg. And it's like, you don't know. I mean, he's been in our gym sparring. You know, I met him. Like, this Exhibit A, one example of some such of regional MMA breaking onto the big scene. It could happen like that.
Yeah, I mean, and you go to these regional shows, right? And you can tell when you're watching a fight and you're watching a guy who's like a 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 amateur, they move different, right? Mm-hmm. They are more composed, they're calmer. You can tell who's going to get not necessarily to the big show, because a lot of that is marketing, promotion, branding, how you control yourself, but there's a different level of fighter that you can see start to emerge early in these regional shows. And that's one of my favorite things about regional MMA is you can watch a guy's, career, someone like a Charlie Brenneman, who, fought way back in the day in, Harrisburg, and then he's fighting on the regional scene. And then I got to see him fight, on a UFC card, on the same card as John Jones. Stuff like that is why we do regional MMA.
Yeah, I was waiting in line for a state wrestling tournament for Scholastic Wrestling behind Charlie Brenneman. I was like, hey, I know you. You're in the UFC.
Yeah.
So I started talking to him. It was pretty cool. But so I got one last question for you. I want to wrap up. We're approaching the 45-minute hour mark on the show. I love to ask the same question to everyone that I have on, and is what is one piece of advice you would give listeners of this broadcast, overall, big picture? What's a nugget of knowledge you learned throughout life you want to share? Start with Alex.
I'll keep it broad because I know you probably have a variety of listeners, whether it's all MMA or people that or people that want to develop ideas, or because I know you go into some deeper questions, which I love. And this is going to sound really cliche, but it's the God's honest truth coming from someone who, to be honest, we just started this company. It's nothing yet, but I have a lot of confidence in the direction that we're going. You have to just adapt. You have to be willing to change. We had this idea. This company is 2 months old. It's nothing like we thought it was going to be 3 months ago, right? But it's better, and that's okay. Just adapt or die. That's it. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think we text each other that once a week, once we make a move. And I would say my advice to anyone on anything, and it's in my Instagram bio. It's something that I live by. I think it's something that I noticed in Alex early on, and it's something that I notice in a lot of people that I surround myself with, is that nobody cares, and you should work harder all the time.
Yeah.
Do more good things, do less bad things. A very wise person once said that to me before. Well, hey, guys, I appreciate the time on the broadcast. I'll put this up as soon as possible. Do me a favor and let everyone know where to find you guys on social media. We'll get this out and hopefully get some more regional MMA fighters to become empowered business people. So thanks a lot for your time.
I love it. Thanks.
You got it, Ross. You can find us anywhere on the web at MMA Tico, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest. You name it, we have it.
That's right.